This is Gemara's Zevachim, Daf Kuf Tes Zayin, and we're closing in V'siyata de Shemaya on a long and lengthy Masechta Baruch Hashem, and we like all the learning as we continue down the month of Teves to be an incredible schos. Aliyas Neshama of Aryeh ben Ya'akov V'siyata de Shemaya, the Koyach HaTorah should continue to elevate higher and higher in Gan Eden Shel Meilam, as well as we like to learn as a schos Aliyas Neshama for Yosef ben Nachman Chaim Halevi, whose yahrzeit is the next daf, and we like to dedicate today's share as well as a schos Aliyas Neshama for Yosef and Nachman Chaim Halevi. The Koyach HaTorah should elevate his neshama and be a military on the entire mishpacha. We pick it up on the bottom of Kuf Tes Vavam and Beis, where 3 lines from the bottom, Amar Mar, and in classical Gemara sense, we dive back into dissecting the previous brisa once again. Amar Mar, Hakol Kishirim Lahakriv. What did the brisa say? The brisa said everyone is kosher lahakriv. So the Gemara now asks, Minan Emili. And again, everyone was incorrect. Not everyone, everything. This is referencing the types of animals, that all types of animals are kosher lahakriv. Says the Gemara, Minan Emili. Amar Avuna Damar Krav, Vayivenayach Mizbeach Lashem Nayach built a Mizbeach Vayikach, and he took Mikol Behema Ta'ira Mikol Oivatar. So we darshan the pasuk Behema Kimashmai, which includes all the domesticated animals. Chaya Bechlal Behema. A Chaya is included in a Behema. And as we turn over to Kuf Tes Zayin with Aleph, the Gemara continues. Zacharim and Akevos Tamimim Ubali Mumin. How do we know? So the Gemara explains, Amar Tamos v'zachros bebeima v'intam v'zachros ba'ifais. There's a concept of Tamos and zachros by behima, but not by a knife. And therefore, vitzkish behima life, and therefore we make a hekish. We equate a behima to a knife. That what? As well as we equate to mimin ubali mumin. Lafukim b'chusever comes to say, excuse me. And that's how we know v'izkish behemoth la'oif. That's we know bein zachar bein nekeva, because behemoth is like an oif, and just like by an oif, there's no chalik between zachar and nekeva. So too by a behemoth. So now continues the Gemara. Timimin ubali mumin, 4 lines down. La'afuke, what does that come to exclude? That comes to exclude mechusar aver delay, that you can't bring an animal that's missing a limb. How do we know an animal that's mechusar aver was usher even to b'nei nayach? Excuse me. Mikol achai umikol basar. We darshan amra Torah. Hava behema shechayin roish evarin shala. Bring an animal that there's life in the roish evarim, in the heads of its limbs, which teaches us that it has to have all its limbs, or else the animal is not allowed to be brought as a carbon. Says the Gemara, how do you know that's what's being mamayit? V'dilma, perhaps limutei trefa. Explains the Gemara, who melachayos zera nafka. A trefa already learned out on the fact that lachayos is zera, which means it has to be a living entity. A trefa, by its very nature, is not considered a living entity. And therefore, says the Gemara, that's why it comes to exclude the treifa. Continues the Gemara, Hanich leman damar treifa ino yolades. There is an opinion that holds that even though the animal is a treifa, still it is capable of giving birth. So therefore, how would we know in our case to be memayit? Explains the Gemara, Ha'amar kra itcha. Pasuk says, Zachri zera itcha, should be alive with you, which in there we darshan b'daim lacha, it has to be similar to you, and just like you, Noach, of course, are not a treifa, so too the animals have to be the same. For Gemara, how do you know? Maybe Noach was a treifa. Who told you otherwise? Says the Gemara, Tamim ksivei. The pasuk says that Noach was Tamim. Noach was perfect, and part of perfection is physically, that Noach was perfect, that he was clearly not a treifa, says the Gemara, he clearly was complete. Correct the Gemara, how do you know? The Pashim Shad and Tamim is Wav done with Tamim Midrachayv. Maybe it just means he was a Tamim in his ways, Sadik b'Maisav. Explains the Gemara. Excuse me, Sadik Sivim. How do you know? Maybe Tamim is Midrachav. Answers the Gemara, it says Sadik, that means Drachav. Correct the Gemara, Vayiter done with Tamim Midrachav, it's Sadik b'Maisav. How do you know? Maybe it means he was a Tamim in his ways and he was a Sadik in his actions. Meaning both words explaining the actions, not the physical makeup of Noach HaTzadik. Says the Gemara, if you're going to tell me that Noach was a treifa, the kavaseich ayel, that animals like you should bring in shalomim, they should be complete. Loy ta'ayel, you should not bring, it will just come out bizarre. Then Noach's a treifa, and therefore the animals have to be better than he. Says the Gemara, so once we have the pasuk of Itcha, it sounds like we already learned that everything is Itcha, and Noach was alive, the animals are alive. So for the Gemara, so why do we need the additional pasuk of Lachiyos Zera? Explains the Gemara, maybe Yitzchak just means that the animals are there to provide friendship, to provide companionship. And therefore the animals could be old, the animals could be sterile. There's no problem at all. That they have to be, that why we bring the animals to repopulate the world, and therefore they have to be able to do that capabilities. Continues the Gemara, we're at the two dots. About 20 lines down, 10 lines before the wider lines, so the Brisa said that before the Mishkan, the animals had to be tahar, kosher, but not tamei. Was there such a concept of tahar and tamei ba'isha in that time? What's the kasha? There's no tahara yet. So if there's no tahara, how could you have tamei and tahar? You know what it means, tar? You're right. It's a different type of tar and tamei, different type of kosher and not kosher. It means an animal that avera was not done with them. From those that in the future are going to be clean. Mina Avayadi says the Gemara, how do you know that before the Mishkan they were able to differentiate between that which will be in the future? Rav Chisda teaches Rav Chisda, Noach had all the animals walk in front of the Teva. Kol Teva Kol Tasan. Whomever the Teva took in, the animals went in groups of 7. It was known Shutar. Until the Teva acted as the selection process. Says the Gemara, the famous drasha, the animals came on their own, and that's how we knew which were tar and not. Amar Mari, we continue quoting the Brisa of Akol Karvu Ailais, and all were brought Ailais. Says Gemara, Ailais in Shlamim Lai, Vaksiv Yizchus Zevachim Shlamim Bnei Hashem. Parim, they brought Shlamim. Eleima says Gemara, you're right. Akol Karevu Ailais Ushlamim. Both. V'atanya Aval Shlamim Lai Kol Kiyam Ailais in Shlamim Lai Kimanda Amar. So it comes out, says the Gemara, we have different man amrim. It's actually a topic of debate whether indeed they brought shlamim or not. The Itmar b'nei Noach, the Itmar on the second narrow medium-sized line. Rav Lazar, Rav Yisi, Rechanina, Chadamar, Karvu shlamim b'nei Noach, Chadamar like Karvu. So that's going to be the difference between the two brises. And where does this come from? Whether they didn't brought shlamim, whether they now brought shlamim. Says the Gemara, my time done damar kavu shlamim b'nei Noach t'chsev v'akol evi gam hu meb'chayre soina mechal ve'yem from the first of their flack and from their fats. So explains the Gemara, Zehuda, Varshachavakar of the Gav Mizveach, Vein Kulikar of the Gav Mizveach, let the Chilav is, the fat is brought, Avioim, Merzesh Shlamim. So that's the Mandarma that says they indeed brought a carbon shlam. But on the fifth medium-sized line, he continues the Gemara, what about the other opinion? My time of the Mandamar Loi Karvu. Tichsev says the Teiro Ritzavanu Ba'iteman. Titnayer Uma Shemaiseya Bitzafan. So we darshan the pasuk they should be agitated. One whose actions are done in the north, which are only the oilais, which are part of the northern side of the Azara. Vitavi Uma Shemaiseya Bitzafan Uba Daraim, which includes the Shlamim. So you see, they did not bring the Shlamim. Umar Nami, says the Gemara, Hoksiv Mechal Behem. So according to the second opinion that says they did not bring shlamim, what does he do with the pasuk? Says the Gemara, Mishmanehem didu, just means from the choicest of the flock. Umar Nami Aksev Uri Tzafin. The opinion that says they brought the shlam, the first opinion, what does he do with the pasuk of Uri Tzafin? That's talking about Moshe Mashiach, how everyone's going to be gathered together. And you're going to bring it to Hashem our God. So what do we see here? We see in the pasuk they brought shlam, zevachim. Zevachim means shlamim. So we see that shlamims were indeed brought. Says the Gemara, zevachim lachila va'ilais lakrav. They brought it, but not on the mizbeach. Clearly, not just an Ayla, but it's Zevachim as well. So we see that Ben and Nayach, yes, indeed brought Zevachim. Says the Gemara, la'achar matan tayru dechsev. That's all after matan tayru. So he a famous machlaikas. What is going on with Yisrael? Was it pre or post Matan Torah? So according to Matan Torah, it says it was after it's all's good. Elamandamar Yisrael good Matan Torah. Michael, what are you going to say? The Itmar. We learned in Ebraisa. Bnei Chever of Shobel Levi Chadamar Yisrael good Matan Torah. Yav Chadam Yisrael Matan Torah. So Lamandam Yisrael good Matan Torah. Because Avar Shlamim Mikrivu Bnei Nayach. That they're going to bring Shlamim. So it says the Gemara, you're right. It's a machlokes. There's two braisos. So according to the brisa, it says that Yisrael was indeed Koydem Matan Torah. He's going to hold that they brought Shlamim. Says the Gemara, Kitanoi. So now we just quoted it to machlokes whether they brought Shlamim or not. So says the Gemara, that is indeed a machlokes Tanaim. Vayish Yisrael Koyim Midyan Masha Yimei Yishama. They ought to Yisrael here above in his gayer. He heard that caused him to become a ger. What was that? Rav Yeshua Imer. Melchemes Amalek Shama. Asher Iksiv Tzida V'Yechlash Yeshua Amalek V'Samal Fi Charev. Rav Elazar Amoidai on the last medium-sized line says, you know, Yisrael heard Matan Torah Shama. Ubani came Nisa Tarali Yisrael. The voice of God was going from one end of the world to the next. All the goyim were seized by trembling in their palaces. And they said, Shira shenemar, ubechalai kulei amer kavai. They all said kavai. Niskavs and kulam eitzel bilam. All the goyim of the world gather next to Bilam Arasha. V'amru loy makol. What is going on over here? Hamoy nasher shamanu. What's this incredible sound that we hear? Shema Mabel Balayla. Maybe a Mabel's coming to the world. Says the Gemara. Bilam says no. Shem Mabel Yashav. He'll never bring a Mabel. He said Hashem sits in his kingdom forever. Kavar Nishva Kadosh Baruch Hu Shena maybe Mabel Olam. So you don't got to worry about that. Maybe. How do we know? Maybe it's going to be a fury of fire. Hashem commanded already, he already swore that he will not destroy all flesh. Is that okay? So then what is this sound? Fascinating that Bilam is telling the Ummah Ha'ilam that Hashem is a chanda genuza, an incredible object of desire in his treasure house. She's a genuza, as it's been hidden by him. Tov kof ayin daled dairais for 974 generations. Kaidim shnevra Ha'ilam. Ubikish on the bottom, and he wants to give it to his children. Shemar Hashem oiz lamo yitin miyad. Paslu kulam va'imrim, all the gaim of the world opened their mouth and they said, Hashem yavarech es amoy bashalim. Rav Eliezer says a third opinion, what Yisrael heard. Kriyas Yamsov Shama Ubash. And Amar Vikishwan Malech Kol Malchei Amir Vavracha Vazayna Amra L'Shluchei Yeshua. Even Rachav the Zayna said to the Shluchim of Yeshua, Kishmanu Zasher Hoivish Shem Es Mei Yam Sof. So of course, what we're seeing over here is it's a point of debate. What did Yisrael hear, and was it pre or post Matan Torah? Continues the Gemara, Hashem as me Yam Sof. So ask Gemara, why over there by the Mayrim? The pasuk says, there was no longer a spirit. And over here by Rachav, talking to Yeshua, says the Kamar of Lakama Oid Ruach Beish, and no spirit remained in any man. Says the Gemara, you know what this shows us? Ta'afilu akshuye nami lo yakshuye, as we turn over to Kuf Tezayin Beis. Akshuye nami lo yakshu, that they were so afraid of the Yidden, they were not even able to have a kishoy, the men were not even able to have relations. Umenayada, and how do we know? How did Rachav know this? Tamarmar in the Chalkol Shar Sar Vinogid. There was no ruler, no leader anywhere. Shlei Baal Rachav Azayna, that did not sleep with the Rachav Zayna. Amru, they said, Bas Yod Shanim Isa. She was 10 years old because she had Yisam in Mitzrayim. Vizanza Komem Shana, and she was Mizana for 40 years. Yisam Midbar. Achar Non Shana. After 50 years old, the Rachav was Nisgaira. Amra, she said, Yimachali. Bischar Chevel Chaloinu Pishtim. She said to Hashem, let me be forgiven reward for the rope, the window, and the flax. And this is referring to three things that she did the Avera with. She said she needs to have a mechila for three things. And this was the famous story when Rachav was surrounded by Yerichai, and Rachav risked her life to save the soldiers. So she said to Hashem, let these acts come and save and be a kapara for all the terrible that she's done. So that is the different opinions whether Yisrael was pre-Matan Torah or post-Matan Torah. Continues the Gemara, Amar Mar. Kuf Tezayin Beis, 6 lines down. Amar Mar va'akum bizman hazeh rishayin la'asos kein. And Goyim nowadays are allowed to do this. Bring karbanos on Abba, and Hanimidi. Taner Rabbanan Tabra Bnei Yisrael. Bnei Yisrael Mitzuyin al Shchutei Chotz. Vein Akam Shchutei Mitzuyin al Shchutei Chotz. The din of Shchutei Chotz is a din dafka by Yidin, not by Goyim. Lefikach, therefore. Kol echad ve'echad bainu labama la'atzoyim akar v'leha kol ma she'yirtzeh. The Goyim are allowed to build a bama and bring to Hashem whatever they want. Amar Rav Yaakov Barach Amar Rav Asi Aser l'sayoyin v'lasa shlichusan. It's aser for Yidden to help them. It's aser for Yidden to act as their shluchim. Amar Rabba ule'arvinu lehu, but to instruct them shari, to tell the Goyim what they're allowed to do, that is allowed. And we say a story, as we see Kiyad Ifra Hormiz. As a case of Hifra Ormiz, who was Imi de Shavar Malka, the mother of Shavar Malka, Shader Karbana the Ravi, she sent a karban to Rava. Shalchulei. So Rava sent and sent to Rava the following message: Askui na'alei l'shem shamayim. Bring this karban for Hashem. Amr lehu l'Rav Safra. Rava said to Rav Safra, Rav Achabar, Una zilu v'debru trei olmi gulai. Go and bring 2 goyim of the same age. And look at a place where the Yam throws sirta on the sediment. and build a mizbeach with that sediment from the ocean, with that sand ground. V'shaklu tzibi chadata, take new wood, v'afiki nura mimara chadata, bring a fire from a new piece of steel, v'askuani alei l'shem shamayim, and bring up the carbon of the mother of Shafar Malka l'shem shamayim. Amar Abaye, so says Abaye, Rava, one of the things, Amar le Abaye, Rabbi says, Keman, according to whom are you saying that you have to use this new wood? Kravlaz ben Shamua. Titania, we're in the first very wide line of Ravlaz ben Shamua. Oimer, Kov de Zayin, Amid Beis. Ma, Mizbeach, Shamish Ba'adi, just like a Mizbeach is a din that a hedi cannot use it. Af eitzim shel yisham shel so do you have to use wood that was not used by a hediyat. But asks Abaye, that din that it has to be a hediyat, it has to be something that was not used, is only by the real mizbeach. When it comes to building a private bama, you don't have this din. The Tanya, one pasuk says, and Rava gave Arnoin 600 weighted the weight of 600 gold shkalim. Uksev, another pasuk says Vayikein David as a Garin Rezabakar because of shkalim chamishim. He purchased the floor and the cattle for 50 shekels of silver. Ha-ketzad. So what is going on over here with these psukim? So explains the Gemara, what happened is he collected 50 shkalim from each shevet, which is how much? Times 12, which of course, chamishim shein sheish meyos, which equals 600. Rabbi Omer says, Rabbi Misham Abba, Yosi ben Dustai, Bakar veitim umakom mizbeach no bino, and the cattle, the wood, in the place of the mizbeach, the ground where the mizbeach was, he purchased for 50 shekel. And the entire area he bought for 600 shekel. Rav Elazar ben Shammua, Amar Bakar veitim makom mizbeach menon. V'chol habayis kula b'sheish meyos achsev v'yomer Aroyna al David yikach v'yal Adoni HaMelech ha'toivein, and he did what was good in his eyes. Re'ei HaBakar la'olam v'amoyrigim uklei HaBakar la'eitzim. So says the Gemara, what do you see over here? You see very clear at the end of this whole brisa that when the karbanis were brought on the floor by Arnon, David used regular utensils as the firewood. He didn't go and bring new wood. So proves from here the Gemara that the din of new wood of Rav Elazar ben Shammua is only on the real Mizbeach. But when it comes to building a bama, there's no din of new wood. So fragt Abayi to Rava, why did you, Rava, when you were building this Mizbeach for Imi de Shavar Malka, did you tell the Goyim to use new wood? Explains the Gemara of Rava Amar L'cha Nami Bechadati. No, by David as well, they used new wood. Says the Gemara, in that story that we just quoted by Arnon and David, my Moirigim, Amar Ula Mita Shel Turbal. It's a type of bed, which is what? Mita Shel Turbal. Amar Abayo, you know what it is? Iza de Karkusi, the carcass of the Daishan Tishaye. It's a type of tool that has hooks and threshes, and it's used with a goat. Amar Abaye Maikra, where we know this in the pasuk, Hine Samticha Lemoirag Charatz Chadash Baal Pipiyos Mikrele Rava Librei. So going back to the Psukim, Rava called his son Ramile Kraya Dadi. He asked the Stiram Psukim that Abaye discussed by David HaMelech. Kseva Yitin David Arnon v'chulu. Ukseva Yitin David v'gaimer. Ha-ketzad. So how do we explain this? Tira Gavim Kol Sheva v'Shevet. This is how Rava says. Chamish Sheish Meyos. V'akati Kashan Adadi. It says the Gemara, but it's still Shver. Hasam Kesef Achazov. However, you're going to twist it, but wait, is it gold or is it silver? Ella says the Gemara, Achi Kamar. Koive Kesef. B'mishkal Sheish Meyos Zav. It was silver in the weight of 600 shekel of gold. We're going to stop over here. We'll pick it up from here. B'siyata d'Shemaya with the last few days in Mirza Hashem of Mesechus Zevachim.